Well, oddly enough, that has been the argument for many years of one of the world's top climate policy commentators. Bjorn Lomborg has been on the show several times already. Bjorn Lomborg is president of the Copenhagen Consensus, visiting fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, and author of bestsellers such as False Alarm: How Climate Change Panic Costs Us Trillions, Hurts the Poor, and Fails to Fix the Planet. Bjorn, lovely to see you again. Thanks so much for your time. Net zero. So many countries, yes, they did make so many promises to cut emissions to net zero by 2050, but how many are actually delivering?
Well, so Climate Action Track actually says no country is delivering on the 1.5 degree. So look, most countries are trying somewhat. As you point out, a lot of countries have signed up but are not actually doing it. China, India, many other countries have no intentions of putting a climate target in front of their getting out of poverty target. So in reality, we have a few rich countries now, no longer the US, but EU, Australia, New Zealand, a few other countries, Canada probably also trying to. But of course, once the rubber hits the road, once it actually starts getting costly to do these climate targets, most countries are going to default.
In my column yesterday, I listed all the evidence I had that we've reached peak global warming, peak net zero commitments. So we're on the backsliding since. Is that how you see it too?
I certainly think that that's what we are seeing. I mean, if you look at the EU, where I live, we used to be incredibly worried about climate change. And then we realized, there's a lot of other issues. You've just talked a lot about the cost of living crisis, but obviously also defense. You have a big worry about pensions in the longer run. There are lots of other concerns for people, and we're now starting to realize, yes, climate change was not our only concern. And in that sense, I really think that Bill Gates' new essay can help bring this about, getting people to realize, yes, climate change is a real issue, but it's just one of many things we need to fix in the 21st century. And spending trillions here and forgetting to spend it everywhere else is just not a good idea.
Well, on that very point, I mean, in reading recent pieces of yours, where, for instance, you've quoted research showing the world has spent more than $20 trillion Australian, 20 trillion, to try to stop global warming and switch to wind and solar and other renewables. What have we got for all that massive spending?
Very little. So this is one of the big problems. Bill Gates tells us you need to start thinking about, when you do climate policy, what's the impact on human welfare? How much does that help the world? And the truth is, spending countless trillions of dollars will only deliver a little bit of temperature relief by the end of the century. Just to give you one example, so we know this is mostly going to be rich countries. If all rich countries, so Australia, the rest of the OECD, including the US, would actually cut their emissions to net zero by 2050, which is going to cost us a lot, hundreds of trillions of dollars, US dollars, over this century. If they manage to do that, if you run that through the UN climate model, the difference by the end of the century will be less than 0.1 degree centigrade. That's simply because we're no longer the big part of the emitters. We're only going to be about 13% of emissions. And if we go to net zero, we'll just be 6%. So yes, we can cut a little bit at very high cost, but you will have no impact on climate now. You will not be able to measure it by mid-century. And even by the end of the century, it'll be less than 0.1 degree. So that's a lot of money to do very little good. That's probably not the right way to try to do human welfare and actually make the world a better place.
So what should Australia do instead?
Well, thank you for asking. Fundamentally, this is about finding technologies that make cutting carbon emissions desirable. So if we could innovate green energy that's cheaper than fossil fuels, everyone will switch. One good example is fourth generation nuclear. Remember, in rich countries, we have only made nuclear more and more expensive, but not so in China. China is actually, as you would imagine, when you build more nuclear power plants, they become cheaper and cheaper. That's because they don't overregulate. They regulate, but they don't overregulate. If we could get fourth generation nuclear, which will be inherently safe and will be type approved at the factory, so we don't have these ongoing litigation that takes years and years, but instead get this out speedily and cheaply, we could get cheap, reliable, and affordable electricity to everyone at very low cost. That would be a way that you can ensure everyone, including China, India, and everybody else, would switch. So what we need to do is to invest a lot more in green energy R&D. This will be much cheaper than what we're currently doing. And it will not just make Australia cut a little bit of its emissions, but it'll make everyone in the world cut a lot in the long run. That's the only way you're going to solve climate change.
Oh, Bjorn Lomborg, so naive. There you tell us to invest more in fourth generation nuclear power. We just had an election where the government said no, nuclear power must be banned. I suspect our government is the mad ones in this part of the argument. Bjorn Lomborg, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.